And hello, everyone. Welcome to today's pre-show for our 220-1201. That is the Core 1 or V15 A+ study group. There's way too many version numbers now. We have to talk about all the different version numbers. Oh, that's okay. We got it all under control here. We'll get started at the top of the hour. You can see it's 11:51 local time, where I happen to be in Central Florida. And we are all ready for our live stream today. We've got all new questions for you in this first hour. I have opened up the questions for the after show, so you can leave questions at any time during this first hour. And then you can, of course, there we go, put the link in. And you can, of course, submit those questions, and we'll have a look at them in the second hour, which we call our after show, which is really just more of the original show, except I'm not asking questions anymore. You're asking questions. Sort of how it works. Okay. Well, if you would like to join us, you can put your virtual pin in our virtual pin cushion, our map of the world. You can see where other people are tuning in from, and you can access that and all of the questions that we will be doing today in the professormesser.com/QA link that you see on your screen. Is there a big difference between the new A+ and the previous one? There are quite a number of differences, and I outlined them to the nth degree in great detail for the on my website. If you go to the 1201 video index page or the 1202 video index page, I show comparisons between that version and the previous one in great detail. Morning 1201 and 1202, will there be a study exam on your website? You mean like this one? You can't even see it from where you are. You mean like this one for practice exams? I don't have the one for the 1202. The 1202, if you have already purchased one of our success bundles for the 1202 exam, you already have download access to the 1202 practice exams. How about that? You can't even buy them yet, and some of you already have access. So there you go. The 1202 practice exams book is complete. It will be on my website, available probably today, tomorrow, etc. Somewhere in there, we'll figure out. It's all about getting the website. It's all about getting time to put it on the website so that you have access to it. So we have to work on that. So yeah, we'll have practice exams. Half of them are already been out there for quite some time. We've had that book. You can kind of see me holding the book right here. So we've had this book on the site, about a month now? So we're doing pretty good there. It takes time to write all these things. You have to sit down and you have to write stuff. It's involved. It's time consuming. It is the fire in which I burn. And I went through it hard. I'm very happy with our latest practice exams books. We'll be doing one of them today. We'll be doing a question from one of them today. Figure it out. Oh, there's dogs barking outside. That's always a good thing for a live stream, isn't it? So we'll figure out the details as we get ready here today. All right, we're in good shape. Let's check all of our cameras. Cameras are good. Why is it showing aux out as nothing? Nope, that's fine. We're good there. Aux out is fine because I'm not doing aux out. I'm doing a direct. That's why. Stream looks good. Numbers are good. We always like to be around. What we are sending to YouTube is about 6 megabits per second of a video stream. It's a 1080 video stream that we send because that's the one that gives us the fastest view. This was a 4K stream. It would take a little bit longer. So that's what that's about. And then for the cache, 3%, 4%, that's about exactly where we like to be. If it gets above 3 or 4, we know there's some type of communications issue. Are there hard copies of this hard copy book for sale on my site? Not yet, but there will be hopefully this weekend. All of those pages up, and you'll be able to get the hard copy physical editions of them as well. You can't hear me? Well, turn it up, man. Don't know why you can't hear me, because I'm sending you all kinds of good stuff. Oh, we got a lot to go through today. All new questions, of course. We're coming up on the end of the 220. This will be the last study group for A+ Core 1 before the Core 1 retires on the 25th for the previous version. So this will be a big send-off for doing that. We'll figure it out. We got about 4 minutes to go before we get started. Let's do a final check in here. I haven't done one of these for like 2 weeks, so it feels like I recognize what I'm doing, but I need to make sure I'm pushing the right buttons kind of thing. Like, how do you do that again? How do you put that up there? Yeah, we're in good shape. We are in good shape. Looking at the cameras look good. You can kind of see them up here. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's just the one at the bottom is a stream camera where I just monitor the stream view over here. I obviously have a large display for that. I could turn that display off and I would still be able to see it here. But I like the big display because I can actually see a lot of the detail, which is kind of hard for you to see on your side. There's a lot of information there that provides me with real-time audio. You can see the audio. I'll be quiet. And then real-time audio, you'll see those waveforms will pop up. And then we've got a lot of details about how things are going with the stream itself. So I like to have it up so I can, if there are any problems, I can look over and see, oh, well, this is working, that is working, this is not working, that kind of thing. So we'll make sure that works as well. A lot of folks in the chat room who have been passing their A+ exams. Great to hear. A lot of people working towards their 1101 and 1102, even though they are retired on the 25th of September. So now's the big push. Those of you just getting into A+ will never take those versions. But there have been people that have been studying for months, and there's always a big push at the, I don't know why, to get it all done before that 6 months is up. I could see in the first 3 months of release, but a lot of folks will look at the last 3 months and take it as a challenge, and they'll need to get in there and learn it all and get it all done before it retires. So we'll figure out those details. Oh, we got a lot here. So I will be talking about the transition between the 1101, the 1201, the 1102, and the 1202. If you are just getting started on your A+ studies, do not study from 1101 and 1102. You should be studying for the 1201 and 1202. Make sure you check all of your study materials that they have been specifically written for those versions. You will hear me say that multiple times today. You'll be tired of me saying it over and over and over again. Do not worry. No, this is not the live stream. Some folks have often said, well, I tuned in, but it's really just the back of your head. No, we haven't gotten started yet. This is the pre-show. With top of the hour, we got 1 minute. 1 minute to go before we actually do something constructive here. So we'll figure it out. Don't worry. I should probably, yep, that's good. I always do this double, triple, quadruple check thing. So far, so good. It's exactly the way it was 5 seconds ago when I checked it. A little OCD, a little bit. When it comes to this, there's a lot of people here. I want to be sure you have a successful study group. I want to be sure that you're able to see me, able to hear me. Are we covering the 1201? This is the 1201 study group, so yes, we will be. All of the questions we have today will be specific to the 1201, although there will be 1101 type things as well. We'll talk about getting certified with the 1101, 1102. Once you take and pass both of those, yes, you are certified for 3 years. So you don't have to worry about that. We are getting here to the top of the hour. This is the top of the hour. Let's prep that. Let's get rid of, I want to see it changed to 12. Is it the top of the hour? It is indeed. There it goes. Let's bring up our keynote. Let's look for a green light. Put on the green light. There we go. Green light. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. It's time for a live stream, everybody. What do you say? Let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2025 Professor Messer 220-1201 Core 1A+ study group. This is the study group where I will ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and you get to see just how well you might know some of this information. Let's see how well we know this information. If you are here live and you would like to join us and answer questions along with everyone else who is here live, you can simply open up a new browser window, pop open a new tab, and head over to the link that we have here, professormesser.com/QA. It's also right here at the bottom. That is your one link to know. You'll be hearing that a few times today, and you can go through the process of following along with us and answering the questions that we have here. If you have done that, there will be a question waiting for you. What will that question say? Well, I'm glad you asked. We call this our rewind question because it's actually a question from a previous study group. So if you have joined us on a previous study group, you might have seen this question before, but all of the other questions we do today will be brand new. So if you are doing the right things, you'll be able to answer this question that asks, a company owns 7 local tire stores and connects them all together using a site-to-site VPN. Which of the following would best describe this network? And I have for you a number of different options. Our standing rule here in the live stream, please do not answer in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to use the link that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to answer this question. That's the only thing you need to know is professormesser.com/QA. You don't have to know any special URLs. You don't have to know any special IDs. Just go to professormesser.com/QA and you are good. The possible answers on this one are LAN, PAN, WAN, MAN, and WLAN. So you have a few ands to step through there to answer that question. We will come back to this question in just a moment. We'll see how well you know some of this information. Do not worry, we have plenty to go through, and I'll give you the answer to that in just a moment. Well, thank you for being here. We do one of these study groups for our Core 1A Plus every month. We also do a study group for the Core 2. We're planning that one 2 days from now. So if you show up on Thursday, same time, same place, you'll be able to join us for our Core 2 study group as well. Keep in mind that, of course, we have other things that we do here all the time. And if you'd like to watch our live courses, of course, our live replays and our full courses, they're out on our YouTube channel. There's nothing extra you have to do to gain access. They're not hidden behind some type of YouTube membership or anything like that. They're just all out there. You can find them at professormesser.com/YouTube. We also have daily pop quiz questions for A+ available at X, Twitter. You can find that at professormesser.com/X or professormesser.com/Twitter. We also have those questions posted on Instagram and LinkedIn. And when we are not here doing a live stream, we're always over on our Discord. You can find that at professormesser.com/Discord. Someone in the chat room asked if watching these live streams counts towards CEUs. They certainly do. Thank you for the setup there. We provide you with a 1-hour webinar category CEU by visiting or listening in during this first hour. I will give you instructions and the information you need to receive a 1-hour webinar category CEU from me via email. We'll talk all about that at some point during this first hour. So you have to listen in. Don't walk away. You might miss it. So you want to be here and listening in for that. Currently, we have 2 separate series of A+ exams that you could be taking. If you are someone who goes back a few years with the A+, if you remember the release date of April the 20th of 2022, CompTIA released the 2201101 and the 2201102, something they're now calling version 14 of the A+ exam. You'll see that reference on the CompTIA website. This exam series retires on September the 25th of this year, September 25th. As we are shooting this, as you are here live, it is September the 9th. That means we have a couple weeks, and then those 2 exams retire. They disappear. They are no longer available. They are former exams, which means that if you are planning to earn your A+ certification by taking these 2 exams, you better act quickly, because these go away forever. Now, if you take one of these and pass, you have to take the other one and pass it to be able to earn your A+. 2 weeks is not a lot of time. So this may not be, I should say, this is not the right exam for you to take if you are just getting started in your A+. What you would like to take instead is a newer version of the A+ exam. Slightly different numbers. These numbers are the 1201 and 1202 versions of the exam. Those exams were released on March the 25th of this year, so they've been around almost 6 months now. The estimated retirement for those 2 exams is September of 2028. So you have about 3 years to pass both of those and become A+ certified. Hopefully it won't take you 3 years. We don't want to take that long to make that happen. If you are just starting your studies with A+, or you feel that you will not be able to complete both of these A+ exams before September the 25th in approximately 2 weeks and a few days, then this is the versions that you will want to study, the 1201 and the 1202. These two exam series are identical for all of the things that you will need to do. The 90 minutes per exam is the same regardless of what you take. On the 1201, you'll need to earn a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900 to pass that exam. It's a little bit more difficult for the 1202. You need to earn a 700 to do that, between 100 and 900. And of course, whether you pass the 1101 and 1102, or you pass the 1201 and 1202, you are certified for 3 years. So although the exams get retired, as long as you pass both of them before they are retired, you are certified for 3 years. As I like to say, it doesn't matter what they do with the exams. Once you're retired, you're locked in. So they could change the exam every day if they wanted to. I'm glad they don't, because that would keep me very busy to make that happen. There are objectives for these exams available on the CompTIA website. You can find those directly on the CompTIA website, or go to professormesser.com/objectives. There is a timeline here. We're coming to the end of the orange 1101, 1102 timeline, and you can see the 1201, 1202 has been going since March, and you can see we've got plenty of time until September of 2028 to take those two exams. Hopefully, that gives you some perspective. If you are planning to take a series of exams, now you get to decide which ones you would like. The good part is after September 25th, it won't matter. Your only choice will be the 1201 and 1202. You'll also notice that about 24 hours after we do our live stream, that you will see, of course, our replay is available on YouTube immediately afterwards, but you'll start to see a more detailed set of information appear with timestamps in the YouTube video description. Those are put there by my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching the replay. Hey, Lori. She's going through this entire process, watching it probably at 2x speed, putting in all of these timestamps so that you can find this information quickly on the replay. So another nice thing to think about if you are planning to sift through this archive of live streams that we have done, you'll be able to find exactly what you want very, very quickly. Thank you, Lori, for doing those YouTube video description updates with the timestamps. We got a lot happening there. Don't forget that we have a 24/7 chat that I am also in over on our Discord. You can go to professormesser.com/Discord to learn more about that, or you can follow the Discord icon that we have in the upper right of our website. Eventually, you will need to take this exam, and to take this exam, you'll have to purchase the exam to take it. If you happen to be in the US or Canada, you can get a discounted voucher so you can save a few dollars, more than a few, if you do that, by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. Any of our CompTIA vouchers are discounted on our site. You don't need any special codes. You don't need a coupon. You don't need a special plugin for your browser. You simply visit the webpage and it is already discounted. What could be easier than that? Not only do you get a discounted voucher and you saved a few bucks, you also get something that you can't get anywhere else. This is only available for people that have my success bundles, or you've purchased a voucher on my website. It's my CompTIA Exam Hacks ebook, where I have listed a number of tips and tricks that I have accumulated through the years for studying, and tips and tricks and strategies when you're in the exam room yourself. Might give you a few extra points, and sometimes a few extra points is all you need to pass these exams. You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/vouchers. And for those of you that have purchased your vouchers on our site, thank you so much. It does help support what we are doing here. It goes a very long way to keeping these videos coming to you. So thank you so much for that support. Let's talk about the questions we had earlier. This is the question I posed to you that asked, a company owns 7 tire stores and connects all of them together using a site-to-site VPN. Which of the following would best describe this network? Would it be a LAN, a PAN, a WAN, a MAN, or a WLAN? Let's close our poll and see how we did with this one. This is almost exactly the numbers we saw last month. We're a little bit torn. 44% of you say it's MAN. 30% of you say the answer is WAN, a wide area network. We also have 14% that said a wireless LAN, which is more of a cellular type of local area network. 11% simply say local area network, and only 1% said PAN, which is a real thing. But it obviously, only 1% of you chose this. Not exactly the right answer we were looking for. The answer that we had, this is a local tire store, which generally means they are all in the same city, or certainly close to each other geographically speaking when you're working through those. Because of that, they are all in the same metropolitan area, so we refer to that as a metropolitan area network. This is the man. This is the metropolitan area network. So if you are connecting everybody in a city or county or the tri-state area, sometimes I think you could probably stretch that into the definition of a man. But if it is in the same metropolitan area, I think you can be safe calling that the man. Usually you'll see these connected these days using Metro Ethernet or some other type of Ethernet connectivity. Could also be wireless. It's all types of connectivities when you're talking about local connections. These are usually managed by your LEC, your local exchange carrier, or some other type of local carrier service. And that is one that will provide you with connectivity. Often the governmental agencies, since they have right-of-way, they've already put conduit in the streets and in all of the grounds going between their facilities. So usually your government will have their own fiber in the ground, and they'll have their own man. So they'll be able to connect all of these sites together using their own fiber. They have to maintain their own fiber, but generally speaking, not a bad thing to work on, to be able to work through that. So our answer indeed was a metropolitan area network. That's what we were looking for. So the 44% of you that chose a metropolitan area network got that one absolutely correct. Would not be a wide area network. Wide area networks are generally for much longer distances. So if you're going to another state, you're going all the way across the state. If you are going to another country, that is obviously a wide area network. We're not making judgments. It's all about distance. That's what we're talking about. We also have 14% of you said WLAN. That W in front refers to wireless, and that term itself often refers to a cellular type network. So your mobile technologies that would be based on cellular behind the scenes, your 5G, your LTE type technologies, we refer to as WLAN. And then we have local area network, which is usually your network within a building or series of buildings, maybe a campus. Once you get outside of campus, though, it is a metropolitan area network. Although one we didn't mention earlier, the 1% of you 1% chose personal area network, a PAN. So anything you're connecting to a Bluetooth connection to your phone, for example, if you have some wireless headset, if you have a wireless speaker, and it's all run over Bluetooth, we often refer to those as a personal area network. So that gives you a rundown on some of the types of networks you would run into. Hopefully that's given you some things to think about. But now let's do some new questions. I always have new questions for you, of course. One of the things that we like to do as our first new question of the month is a performance-based question. On your exam, a lot of the questions that you're going to get will be multiple choice. For example, the question we just did was a multiple choice question. There was a question, there were multiple options to choose from. Even if you didn't know what the answer was, you could have guessed. And in this particular case, you had a 20% chance of getting it right. That's a pretty good percentage for just guessing. That's free points. But not every question on the exam is multiple choice. No, CompTIA is on to us. Instead, at the very beginning of your exam, you will get a handful of questions that are anything but multiple choice. CompTIA calls these performance-based questions, and they are questions that might be a matching question. It might be a drag and drop. It might be putting you at a command prompt or a Windows front end and asking you to perform a function. So it's more of an interactive type of question, but all of the content of those questions still is based on the core exam objectives. As I often say, if you know the exam objectives and you understand everything that's expected of you, then it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. You'll be able to answer it without any problem whatsoever. So let's see if that's true. I have for you today a brand new performance-based question. And as always, of course, I will remind you, please no answers in the chat room and please no hints in the chat room. Today's performance-based question is this one, which asks you to select the right tool for this issue. Some tools will not be used. So I have for you a number of tools. How many are here? 7 different tools. There's a cable stripper, a cable tester, a crimper, a toner probe, a Wi-Fi analyzer, a punch-down tool, and a network tap. So we're sticking with networking, it seems, here at the very beginning of this study group. I have for you 5 different tasks that you need to perform, and I want you to tell me what tool you would use for that task. This is sort of a story. We're going to build on this. These are not 5 separate tasks. They are a series of tasks that you are going to perform. The first thing that you're going to do is there's a bunch of cables coming out of the ceiling, 120 cables in a big group, and you need to locate one of those 120 UTP cables that were recently pulled through the ceiling. Can you imagine how many cables are there now hanging from the ceiling? It's a lot. This is a normal day in the life of a network technician, by the way. So how do you find that one cable? Well, choose the right one of those tools on the right side and tell me what you think it is. This is the tools will not be reused in this list. So once you use a tool, you will not use it again in this particular question. The second task I would like you to do is, now that you've found that particular cable in that huge bundle, I want you to remove the outer jacket of the cable to reveal the individual wires inside. What tool would you use for that? Once you have removed that outer jacket, I want you to do this third task, which is connect an RJ45 connector to the end of that cable. Again, sort of a normal day in the life of a network technician. These are the tasks that we go through, so you need to understand what tools you would use for that. Now that you put the connector on, you plugged it into your computer, you've turned on your computer, but you've run into a problem. That problem is that the cable is negotiating at 100 megabits instead of 1 gigabit, which is what we are plugging into. We're plugging into a gig link with a gig interface. Why is it not gig? What can help us to determine this? And we'll want to know that. That's the answer that we're looking for question 4. And the task number 5 is, now that we are done connecting that one cable, we've got the other 119 cables that I would like you to connect to a 110 block. So tell me what type of tool you would use for that. So there you go. It's sort of a little story that we now have to use our tool bag to complete the tasks for this story. So if you think you know the answer, you can submit those by using the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Simply pop open a new browser window. It's right there at the bottom, right there, professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer that particular question. I'm not even going to look over there. Am I? It's a fill in the blank, so I'm going to go over here and have a look. If you just wanted to put the letters and numbers, you can do that. So if you think they're already in the right order, you can put 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E. There you go. You're done. That's not what they are, though. I did mix them up a little bit. As I always do, a lot of you don't even know when I'm building all of these things. I like to randomize things, but I don't trust myself to be random. So all of the questions and answers we always do in these study groups, I always randomize at random.org. If you ever need a way to randomize something, they're not a sponsor. I'm just saying that's what I use. That's just a great website. If you ever need to put something in and randomize it and get a real random or close to random type of result, that's what I use for this. So that's what I used on this question, was random.org. It mixed everything up for us so we can figure that out. I use that for everything. I used it for our practice exams books. I use it on the website all the time. I'm constantly on that page, randomizing things. Who doesn't need a little bit of randomization in their life? That's what I say. We all need a little chaos, right? So that's what I do, is provide that. If you think you know the answer, go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to submit your answer. Let's see what you think the answer is to be able to answer all of these. This is, by the way, a normal set of tasks that you will be expected to do as someone who is working with computers, perhaps more on the networking side, but you'll see it on the computer side as well. You'll see what all of those things might be. See if you know what this one happens to be. A lot of people already submitting their answers, so I'm going to now stop talking. Let's step through each one of these and see what I would have used for each of these questions. We will start with the very first task, which asks, locate one of those 120 UTP cables that have been recently pulled through the ceiling. How can we find one cable, that little tiny, the tiniest little bit of cable that may be in a haystack of cables? We need to find it. And the way that you would do that is to use, it's really two different devices, but we often refer to it with one name as a toner probe. Do I have my toner probe here somewhere? I probably do. Should have probably pulled it up to be able to bring that to you. This is a tone generator that you would connect to one end of the cable, and an inductive probe that allows you to hear the analog audio that is being sent over that. It's just a beeping noise that's being sent across that wire. I demonstrate this in the video that I have in my series, section 2.8 for the videos called Network Tools. I demonstrate this so you can see how you would practically use that. If somebody handed you a toner probe and said, go find a cable, you may need to know how to do that. So I give you an example of that. That will allow you to find that one cable without having to cut, to break, to splice, to do some type of other process. I don't know, a divining rod, a venting rod. There's no way to figure it out any other way other than a toner probe. I guess there are other ways to do it. You could go into the ceiling and manually track back across 100 meters where that cable would be, or you can just plug in a toner on one side and find the probe on the other side, and you found the cable. It takes seconds to be able to do this. The next on our list, our task number 2, is to remove the outer jacket of the cable to reveal the wires that are inside. The way that we would do that is through a cable stripper. We're not there yet. Cable stripper is going to allow us to take the outside covering off of that cable, because often we need to get on the inside to put on a connector. There's different types of cable strippers, some that are designed for UTP, different types of UTP. There's also different cable strippers for coax. You need to make sure that you're using the right type of cable stripper and that you have configured it properly so that it only cuts the outside of the cable and doesn't cut the inside of the cable. That's a very common problem you might run into. So make sure that you are using the cable stripper properly to remove that outside jacket. Next on our list is the task that asks us to connect an RJ45 connector to the end of the cable. That's the one where we would use a crimper. That is the crimping device. It's like a funny looking wrench that we would put our connector in, put our RJ5 or RJ45 connector in. We would pull open all of those tiny little wires and put those wires in there. It can be a bit difficult your first few times using a crimper, but after a while, you start to figure it out, and it almost becomes second nature. You can do it while you're talking to somebody else. So, how was the weekend? Did you see any movies? What do you think of the game last night? It's almost like normal. You almost forget about it. But when you're doing that first 5 or 6, it takes so long, and your fingers hurt, and your wires don't go where you expect them to be. You just have to keep working with it. Like anything else, practice, practice, practice. That's what you would use with the crimper. Next on our list is determine why the cable negotiates at 100 megabits instead of 1 gigabit. Well, that's a little bit of a problem. To be able to answer this question, we probably need to go to the 5th domain of the 1201 exam, which is the troubleshooting domain. And this is clearly a troubleshooting task. Normally, you would see problems like this when you don't have the right cables crimped or you're missing one of those wires. One thing that is very significant between 100 megabit Ethernet and 1000 megabit Ethernet or 1 gigabit Ethernet is that the 100 megabit Ethernet only needs 4 wires. It only needs 2 pair. For gigabit Ethernet, you need all 8 wires to be crimped properly. So you can get away with problems sometimes when you need only 4 wires. But when all 8 wires have to be crimped the correct way, they all have to be fully inserted into the RJ45 connector. They all have to be put in the right order. And if you mess up any part of that, they will not negotiate to 1 gig throughput. But very often, the 4 wires that are needed to convert to 100 megabit Ethernet are intact, and it will auto-negotiate to 100 megabit. To be able to do that, we would need to determine what wires did we mess up? What wire is missing out of the crimp? Did we flip some wires around? Where is the problem? The best way to figure out where that problem is to use a cable tester. This is generally just a very common way to determine the type of connection between one side and the other. We're just really trying to determine, does pin 1 on one side of the cable connect to pin 1 on the other side of the cable? It does. Okay, how does pin 2 on one side of the cable connect to pin 2 on the other side of the cable? And it goes through the entire process automatically for you in a matter of moments so that you can see very, very quickly where the problem might be with your crimping. And it was your crimping. Let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with the cable. We think there is. We feel in our heart there must be a problem with this cable. No, we did a poor job with our crimping. Cut the crimp off the end, cut that connector off the end, and do the entire process again. That'll only be the third or fourth time you go through it. So a cable tester will show you very quickly. And lastly, we want to connect the rest of those cables, the additional 119 UTP cables. We'd like to connect those to a 110 block. That 110 block we often refer to as a punch down block. So to be able to do that, we need a punch down tool. The punch down tools are specifically made for the type of block that you are using. So if it's a 110 block, you will need a punch down tool that is specifically been made or has connectors that are specific to a 110 block. You often find connectors for these punch down tools. One end of the connector is made for a 110 block, and then you can pull it out and put the other side in. They're little tiny knives and a punch down piece. Those are made for a different type of block, usually an 88 or some other type of block. So those were the 5 tasks. That was the story that we were going to go through. Your day as a network technician started off with locating one of the 120 UTP cables. You used your toner probe to find where that one cable might be. You then removed the outer jacket of the cable to reveal the individual wires inside. You did that by using a cable stripper. You then connected an RJ45 connector to the end of that cable, and you used a crimper to do that. You determined why the cable negotiated at 100 megabit instead of 1 gigabit by plugging in a cable tester to see where you messed up your crimp in the previous task. And then the last task, we fixed all of that, and then we needed to connect the rest of the cables to a punch down block. We used our punch down tool to do that, to connect them, all the rest of those, to the 110 block. That is our performance-based question of the month. We took all of those different hardware pieces. There's still a couple of hardware pieces that weren't listed in here. You might want to look at the video if you want to get more details on all of these. You can go to section 2.8 of my 220-1201 video series. The name of the video is called Network Tools. So hopefully that gives you some perspective on things that you will need to know, and maybe gives you an idea of one of the many styles of questions that might be presented to you on the exam itself. Hopefully you've got a few of those right. For those of you that got more than 4 of these correct, 3 or 4 of them, I think you're doing pretty good. If you got one of them wrong or you don't recognize one of those tools, make sure you check the video for more information on all of those. Well, let's now go through the only ones we did not use in that list, by the way, were the Wi-Fi analyzer. That is for wireless networking, and you don't see any wireless questions on here, or a network tap. We didn't use the network tap either. That's often used for capturing packets from a network, especially if you have no other way to plug in your protocol analyzer. You need a tap so that you can gain access to all of the data flowing across that wire. Let's now flip back to a multiple choice question. After we've done our handful of performance-based questions at the beginning of the exam, you will have multiple choice questions to go through. And the next question that we have is this multiple choice question that asks, which of the following technologies would be most associated with a laptop computer? Would it be ECC, RAID, DDR, M.2, or SODIMM? A lot of technologies there. Which one is this? Now, if you think you know the answer, there's a link here right on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to answer this question. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You instead want to follow that link at professormesser.com/QA. If you want to know more, you can sort through all of these again. The question again asks, which of the following technologies would be most associated with a laptop computer? Is this ECC, RAID, DDR, M.2, or SODIMM? Lock in your answer right now. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. See if you know what this one happens to be. Those of you with laptop computers, you might already be familiar with what this would be. A lot of these technologies are available in laptop computers, but that wasn't the question now, was it? You have to make sure you parse out these questions and make sure you understand exactly what is being asked of you on the exam, because some people will read part of the question, think they know what's being asked of them, jump right to the answers, and they end up answering a question that was never asked of them, which means you got that one wrong. So one thing, one skill, one technique that you should always think about on this exam is to read everything in the question. I know the clock is ticking. I know there is a time crunch to get through these exams, but you're much better spending extra time reading the right question than in spending less time in answering the wrong question. So that's what you want to try to avoid. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, which of the following technologies would be most associated with a laptop computer? Is this ECC, RAID, DDR, M.2, or SODIMM? 85% of you seem to think the answer is SODIMM. 10% of you, though, said the answer is M.2, what you would think it is. And then it's effectively a three-way tie for last place between ECC, RAID, and DDR, all of them coming in at 1 or 2%. So is it one of those? Maybe. If we go with what everybody said, 85%, let's see what the actual answer is. It was SODIMM. 85% of you were absolutely right with this one. It was something we refer to as a small outline dual inline memory module. This is why we call this SODIMM, by the way, to be able to work through all of these. That's what we try to work through, is trying to understand these technologies and what you would find. The reason these work well in a laptop is because they are much smaller, almost half the size of the memory modules that you would find in a full-size desktop computer. So that is a good place that you will find these. You probably won't see a SODIMM in a desktop computer because a SODIMM is a little more expensive to make because it's a little bit smaller. You have to crunch more things into a smaller place. There's also limitations on the number and type of SODIMM modules that you could find. You could find a lot more variations of full-size DIMMs for desktop computers. Makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to find memory. So this is a very, I won't say very specialized, but it is a specialized form of memory that is designed for devices that are very small. Sometimes you'll find these in small devices that are set up on a desktop that are the small form factor computers. Because they are so small, they often will use SODIMMs instead of full-size DIMMs. So it just depends on the type of motherboard that you found, but you'll almost always see these in laptops. That is the place, that is of course on laptops that will support SODIMMs. These days we're seeing more and more laptops where they are simply soldering the memory directly to the system board, which is a lot less expensive for the laptop manufacturer, but it doesn't allow us to do any type of modification. So you have to buy how much memory you're going to need, and hopefully you'll never need more of that with your laptop. SODIMM was the right answer. 85% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, 10% of you chose M.2. M.2 is a form factor we commonly see associated with solid-state drives these days. They're so little. They're almost the size of a DIMM. They're so small, and we'll see a lot of those being used. M.2 is a very good example of those, but M.2 is a standard that you'll see across many different platforms. In fact, practically every platform these days is using M.2. So any new desktop computers you get, there will be M.2 interfaces on the desktops as well. I would not say that M.2 is most associated with a laptop computer. That is probably not the case. You'll see that just as evenly distributed across both laptops and desktops. We also have DDR, which is a style of memory, the dual data rate memory, but dual data rate is used on both desktops and laptops. It's not most associated with a laptop. ECC is a type of memory you often see associated with the large servers. That's error correcting code memory, ECC. So a database server, a web server, they will often use ECC memory. And then lastly, we have RAID, which is a type of storage, a redundant array of independent disks. Those devices they can be found in a laptop. I used to have a laptop with 2 storage bays in it, and you could set up RAID in hardware on the laptop itself to evenly distribute the information across both of those drives. Don't really see that on many laptops, however. It's very uncommon to see on a laptop. So given all of the different choices here, the one that would be the most associated with the laptop is the one that 85% of you chose. So Dim, that's the answer that we were looking for. Let's do another question, shall we? This next question on our list asks, a company has a project to implement VDI. Which of the following would be most associated with this project? Would it be Windows desktop backups, a laser printer configuration, Bluetooth connectivity, HDMI connection, or RAID support? There's quite a few things happening here, none of which that actually describe the technology that we have in the question. So we have to, of course, look into this further. This is probably it's certainly a very common type of question that you will get on your exam, because CompTIA very rarely asks you a direct question on the exam. Usually it is a question that goes from one device to another, and finally you end up where the answer might be. And this is a really good example of this. You have to know what the question is asking to be able to make the inferences necessary to be able to answer the question. So we'll have to see how well you happen to know this one. If you think you know the answer, you can go to professormesser.com/QA, the link that's on your screen, to answer this. As always, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You can, of course, go to the link, answer the question. All of your answers, all of the questions, and all the answers will be on that same page. So once you open the tab, you don't have to do anything else. Make that happen. Let's see how we did. A lot of you getting your answers in, not as fast getting your answers in on this one. We're all sort of trying to figure out the details of this. So there's a lot we have to sift through to be able to get to the final answer on this one. We'll have to see if your answers on this match my answers on this. I wonder if they really do. We'll find out. Let's see how you did. The question again asks, a company has a project to implement VDI. Which of the following would be most associated with this project? Would it be Windows desktop backups, laser printer configuration, Bluetooth connectivity, HDMI connections, or RAID support? Which one would it be? Well, what did you choose? I want to know myself. We'll stop the poll, and we can see that 62% of you chose Windows desktop backups. 23% of you, almost a quarter of you, say the answer is an HDMI connection. 15% of you said RAID support. And I don't know if this has ever happened. We have two separate answers that got 0%, none, nada, zip, zilch. 0% for laser printer configuration and 0% for Bluetooth connectivity. This is one of those times where I really, really, really wish the answer was the 0%. Not because I want it to be a 0%, but I just feel like it would be a lot of fun to have a question like that. In this particular case, however, the answer is Windows desktop backups. The majority of you, the 62% of you that chose Windows desktop backups, got the right answer. Now, why is that the right answer? Why did that end up being what we needed for VDI? Well, to answer that, we need to understand what VDI happens to be. That is our virtual desktop infrastructure. This is one where we get rid of all of the high-end desktop and laptops that we would normally have in our desk with tons of memory and tons of storage and tons of CPU cycles. It would be so much less expensive since we are buying hundreds or perhaps even thousands of these for our company. What if we could get a much less expensive device? We could save millions of dollars by using a less expensive device and just having one enormously large server in the core of our network running a virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI. And so this allows you to have really the basics of operating systems at the desktop. All you basically need is a screen, a keyboard, and a mouse, and a network connection, and you are done. That's all you need. You don't have to have a fancy graphics card. You don't have to have tons of memory in the system. You don't have to have enormous amounts of storage space. That means you can save some money. And every little bit of money that you're saving is going to be better for the bottom line of the organization. This is also perhaps even most importantly, because we are connecting across the network to perform all of the tasks that we do on our desk, we need to make sure we have a good network connection. So another good one to be able to see and work with. And if you were using VDI and you looked at, this is an actual VDI connection to a VDI service provided by Amazon. Amazon calls this their workspaces. This is one where I simply told Amazon, make me a Windows desktop. And Amazon said, here you go. All you have to do is connect to it using our client. We connect it in, and here I am at a Windows desktop. It is a fully featured, fully functional Windows desktop system. So there's nothing unusual about this. It looks and feels exactly like a Windows that would be running at your desk. But since everybody is connecting to a central server, let's look at a bigger picture of it. Since everybody is connecting to a central server to be able to access this, all of the data is in one place. Oh, well, that makes it so easy to be able to back up everyone's information. So we no longer have to worry about going to everybody's individual desk or making sure that everybody is saving their files on the server or somewhere that it will be backed up, because you always get those folks that will save a file and it's on their local machine, and then something happens to the storage drive on their local machine and they lose everything. Well, if we have everything out there on one server, you just need to back up the one server, and now everybody's desktop, everybody's local folders, everything is now backed up because you have it all in one place. That's one of the many advantages associated with a virtual desktop infrastructure, or VDI, and that's why 62% of you got that absolutely correct. 23% said an HDMI connection, but VDI doesn't require any special kind of video input or output. These systems could be running VGA. They could be running some type of DVI. They could be running DisplayPort. Doesn't matter. So I would not say that VDI is most associated with HDMI, especially considering we had the option for Windows desktop backups. And 15% of you said RAID support, because this is VDI and all of those services are out on a centralized server. You have no storage really required on that local machine. Very minimal storage. Certainly you don't need RAID. RAID costs money. And if you can have RAID somewhere else or have all of that data protected elsewhere, then you don't have to worry about that on your local machine. Would not be RAID support either. Now, 0% of you said a laser printer configuration. There's no laser printers inherent to VDI, so that's obviously not the right answer. And Bluetooth connectivity, you're not going to have much Bluetooth connectivity when you're running VDI, because that machine that is running it is out in the cloud somewhere. It's somewhere where you are not. So Bluetooth probably not a good option for that. Your answer in this one is the one that 62% of you chose, Windows desktop backups. That is the right answer. That's the one we were looking for. And if you answered that, you got it absolutely correct. Well, as many of you know, we have all of these videos that we've created for the Core 1 exam and the Core 2 exam. Our entire 220-1201 course and 220-1202 course is available for you to watch on YouTube. If you were to watch every single video, it's 137 videos. Wow, I made a lot of videos for this course. Over 19 hours of content. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into this. And I wish everybody had time to go through every single video. But I recognize that although many of you do watch every video, and I do encourage you to do so, sometimes you do run into a scenario where you just don't have that much time on your hands. So what I've done is create a series of notes for you for both the 220-1201 and the 220-1202 that are digital notes that you're able to download immediately and start using. It steps through each video in order. All of the text from every video is in here. All of the important images, all of the important tables, all of the important graphics, they are all in this single document. Everything is there. Now, you might take your own notes. That's fine. But if you want to be sure that you're capturing everything from every video, well, then you probably want to go to our course notes to be able to get all of those. Not only do we have the digital version of the course notes, we also have a physical version of the course notes. It's the same information. There's nothing unique or different about it. You probably recognize some of those images than what we had earlier, but it's something that's printed out. It's something that's in a format that you can take with you. And if you get the physical edition, we will print this out and send it to you. It's printed on demand specifically for you. It's the only person that was designed for. And you will get the digital PDF that you can download immediately as well while you're waiting on this to be delivered. Not only do we have the Core 1, if you buy it along with the Core 2, put it in order, there we go, then you get a little bit of a discount. So if you're looking for a little bit of a price break, you might want to consider getting both of those at the same time. So a little something that you can work on to make all of that happen. I think if you're going through the process of trying to understand what you should be working on, what different information you should be memorizing, this is a very concise and very specific set of study materials that has been written to match the official CompTIA exam objectives. You can find out more on our website. Go to professormesser.com/1201notes to learn more about that particular set. Also another way to be able to make that happen. Some folks in the chat room were saying, hey, I bought the Success Bundle, which is in a digital edition form only. And it says, what would be the additional cost? There is an upgrade if you'd like to also get a copy of the course notes, the practice exams, or both. There is an upgrade process. Just open a ticket under your member login or send me a note using the Contact Us link on the website, and I'll send you the coupon code, the instructions to upgrade to the physical edition. Thank you so much for your support. Those course notes, the practice exams, and the other training materials that we have help keep all of this going. So thank you so much for supporting what we do here. Let's do some more questions, shall we? Next on our list, this is definitely a 1201 question, and it asks, the color temperatures on a user's internal laptop display change throughout the workday. Which of the following would be the most effective troubleshooting step for this? Would it be to replace the HDMI cable, use a different video resolution, disable blue light filters, run Windows Update, or change the display brightness? One of those will be the right answer. If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. Instead, you want to go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to be able to answer that question. Again, the question asks, the color temperatures on a user's internal laptop user's internal laptop display change throughout the workday. Which of the following would be the most effective troubleshooting step? Would it be replace the HDMI cable, use a different video resolution, disable blue light filters, run Windows Update, or change the display brightness? You think you know the answer? Go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. A lot of the questions we've been doing so far have applied to both the 1101 and the 1201. This is, I think, the first question that we've gotten to that is only for the core, or for the 1202, for the newer exam version. So we've got different choices. There are different video troubleshooting tasks you need to know for the exam. They are listed in the official CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you are familiar with those so that you will be able to know what might be thrown at you on the exam. Fortunately, there are a limited number of troubleshooting tasks that you need to know for the exam. They happen to be the most popular ones, obviously. So if you know those 10 or 12 troubleshooting tasks and you know how to address them, you will do fine on your exam. And we give you ways to address each one of them in our video series, so you know what to expect. Let's see how you would have handled this, what troubleshooting steps you would have gone through. The question again asks, the color temperatures on a user's internal laptop display change throughout the workday. Which of the following would be the most effective troubleshooting step? Would it be to replace the HDMI cable, use a different video resolution, disable blue light filters, run Windows Update, or change the display brightness? What did you select? I did not peek, so let's find out together what you chose. 58% of you, just over half of you, say to disable blue light filters, and then it's a very almost even distribution after that. A tie for second, 14% and 14% say use a different video resolution or change the display brightness. And then 8% said replace the HDMI cable, and 6% say to run Windows Update. Well, this is a common problem these days because you will find, especially on newer operating systems, that the colors tend to change throughout the day. They start at one color temperature, and then the screen changes to a different color temperature in the afternoon, and then it changes to another color temperature in the evening. Now, if you're someone who is working on graphics, you're working on video editing, this is very annoying because you need an accurate color representation on your screen, not one that changes throughout the day. That's pretty bad. Now, sometimes this is a problem with the monitor itself. You got a bad monitor. Sometimes it's just a misconfiguration of the monitor, and maybe you can adjust the tint if it's always a bad color. But if it's a color that's constantly changing throughout the day, the color tints are modifying themselves on the screen themselves, you might want to look at the configuration of your operating system. Turns out your OS may be changing these colors for you because they're trying to be helpful, and sometimes they're not as helpful as you would like. There is a configuration inside of Windows, for example, called Night Light, where they get rid of a lot of the blue colors because we are being told, whether it's true or not, that blue colors make you stay awake. And if you can get rid of the bluer colors, or is it the other way around? There's a set of colors that if we change the color temperature to something that's not really normal, that somehow you will sleep better. I'm not really buying this as much as they say I should be buying this, because you often see people, you should get the new sunglasses with the blue filters. You should get the nightlight feature turned on. I'm not really seeing much of a difference myself, though. So maybe we should stick with something different for our sleeping. But if we can get anything out of it, that might be useful. We can at least see that there is something there, that maybe it's helping you. And if it is helping you, maybe you don't want to leave those on. But if you're working with a graphics editing, you're working with video editing, or anything else where you need an accurate color representation, you probably want to disable that in the operating system. So that is the answer that we were looking for, and that's the one that most of you chose, is to disable any blue light filters. In the world of Microsoft Windows, that's the Night Light feature. Mac OS and Linux have similar features available. You can find those in the operating system and disable them, and maybe you won't jump around and change all those colors all the time. We have folks, the 14% of you said to use a different video resolution, and sometimes using a different resolution on the internal laptop display would be a useful way to make it a little clearer, or maybe you don't like it as clear. Maybe you'd like your display to be fuzzy. You can play around with those video resolutions, but changing the video resolution is not going to change the color temperature throughout the day, because we usually aren't changing our video resolutions throughout the day either. But changing a video resolution is not going to change a color temperature anyway. So not the right answer. 14% of you changed the display brightness. Well, the display brightness is not really changing the color temperature. It's simply making the colors brighter or less bright. It's not changing the whites to more of a yellow or an orange to more of a red. It's instead changing how bright those happen to be. So changing your display brightness is not going to help you with color temperatures. We have 8% of you that said replace the HDMI cable. Well, this is an internal laptop display. There is no HDMI cable to replace. So we don't have an HDMI connection, therefore there's no HDMI cable. I guess if there is a trick to this question, that would be the trick, although it's not really a trick. It says in the question, internal laptop display, there's no cables here. It's all inside the laptop itself. And then 6% of you say run Windows Update. I think that's the answer for anything. You should probably run Windows Update anyway, but I don't think running Windows Update is going to do anything for you for changing color temperatures on your Windows desktop. Certainly would not be the most effective troubleshooting step. In this case, the most effective option of these 5 will be to disable blue light filters. I know this because I had to disable them on my computer because all the colors kept changing throughout the day. It makes it very difficult to do any type of changes or video editing or graphics editing or website development. So some of you might be able to use that particular feature. We've got a little bit of time before the top of the hour, so let's squeeze in another question, shall we? I think we got a couple we can fit in here. The next question asks, a company requires the use of biometrics during the login process. Which of the following hardware would best support this requirement? Would this be a phone with an authentication app, a security key, an integrated webcam, a Bluetooth mouse, or a smart card reader? A company requires the use of biometrics during the login process. Which of the following hardware would best support this requirement? Would it be phone with authentication app, security key, integrated webcam, Bluetooth mouth, I'm going to say that. It's a Bluetooth mouth, and then a smart card reader. It's one of those, right? One of those 5 is the right answer. If you think you know what it is, it's professormesser.com/QA. I'm the one that apparently has the Bluetooth mouth right now. You'll see if you know this. A lot of people answering quickly. I feel like that means people know the answer and they've locked it in very quickly on these. I try not to look at what the answers are. It's actually behind the screen. And on this tab is the answer to these. So we don't go to that tab. We go to this tab. And we just keep it on this screen to see what the answer might be. Lock those answers in. See if you happen to know what these are. Working with biometrics, you're now a security expert. Working with these biometrics at the login prompt. Which is it going to be? Lock those answers in at the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. There it is right there. Lock those all up. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a company requires the use of biometrics during the login process. Which of the following hardware would best support this requirement? Would that be a phone with an authentication app, a security key, an integrated webcam, a Bluetooth mouse, and a smart card reader? It's got to be one of those. Let's see what you chose. We'll close the poll, and 67% of you say the answer is an integrated webcam, but a quarter of you, or 24% of you, say it's a phone with an authentication app is what you would choose for that. 5% of you said a smart card reader, smart card. We got 4% of you said a security key, and 0% say a Bluetooth mouth. That is the 0% of you. I didn't sell that one really on the question that well, quite honestly. And in this particular example, I'm not sure how a Bluetooth mouse would have anything to do with biometrics or the login process in general. So your 0% there is well founded. But if it's not a Bluetooth mouth, what would it be? Well, biometrics is something that you are. So the biometrics would be something like a fingerprint, a retina scan, a handprint. In Windows, we have different features available. This is the Windows sign-in option. I'm going to zoom up on this. Here we go. Came off the mic a little bit there. Windows uses these features called Windows Hello Face. It's an odd name, but they will do face recognition when you are connecting. We have the Windows Hello Fingerprint. If your laptop has a fingerprint reader or your desktop has a fingerprint reader, that's another biometric that you can use. And the rest of these are not biometrics. A PIN, a personal identification number, is something you know, so it's not biometric. A security key is something you have. That is not biometric. You got a password. That's something you know, not a biometric. Or a picture password, also not a biometric. So the two that are in the Windows list are the face recognition and the fingerprint. Well, I would need a fingerprint reader to be able to read that. Fingerprint reader was not one of our options, but to be able to do face recognition, we could use a camera. And if you have an integrated webcam, then that would be the one that we would need to perform some type of biometric authentication. So hopefully that's given you some ideas for protecting your login a little bit better. If you have an integrated webcam on your computer, you might be able to use Windows Hello Face to be able to do that. You could turn that on and be able to do face recognition. A lot of us use face recognition with our mobile phones, so we can simply use the mobile phone to be able to have that recognition and be able to use that. So it's common on our mobile phones. Now we have other options here. Phone with authentication app got 24%, but there was nothing in the question that said that your phone is somehow protected with biometrics. There might not even be a lock on your phone. I'm not sure why you would do that, but I know people that don't have locks on their phones. I don't know either, but that's how they live their life, and who am I to judge? But that itself has nothing to do with biometrics. An authentication app is something you know, not something you are. I guess something you have, rather, is the authentication app, because you have your phone. And if you have your phone, you have the authentication app, and if you have the authentication app, you have the secret code, and therefore the secret code that's there is something you have with you. Ideally, hopefully I have it with me and being able to work through that. We have 5% that said a smart card reader. The smart card readers are useful, especially if you have an ID that has a smart card in it. You can take your ID, plug it into your computer. It authenticates you. Obviously, most of you would be the only person with your ID card. So usually that's used in conjunction with some other type of authentication factor. We put in a username, we put in a password, we then plug our card in. And if you have all of those things, you are then authenticated into the system. But that is not biometrics. You have a card with you. That's something you have, not something you are. 4% of you said a security key. Another good example of a great security tool. There's lots of third-party security key providers, little certificates on these keys that you can have, but it's not biometrics. It's something you have, not something you are. So security key would not be biometric associated type of authentication factor. And then nobody chose my Bluetooth mouth. Bluetooth mouth was not one that we would choose for that one. Though in this particular case, the only answer that makes any sense, the one that 67% of you chose, was indeed the integrated webcam, 67%. That's a pretty good number to have that there. Hopefully, it's giving you something to think about. Maybe you can set up the authentication on your Windows computer to be just a little bit better than what you're using already. Set up a PIN, set up the other features that are on there. Hopefully, you have some ideas of things you can use to make your login process just a little bit more secure. Well, as we've already seen today, there are a lot of different types of questions that you will run into on this exam from many different categories and different domains that are provided from the official set of CompTIA exam objectives. Whenever I started looking at practice exams on the internet, what I found was kind of sad, really. A lot of the practice exams that you find online are relatively simple. Some of them are using very outdated topics that are no longer asked of you on the exam. And a lot of the questions I ran into had a question with a completely wrong or misleading answer. Can you say AI? Yes, you can. Just horrible questions coming out of AI. AI is great for making pretty pictures. AI is awful for trying to help you study for an exam and get accurate and correct information. It's horrible for that. So I thought, what if we were able to make some better questions? Let's make some questions that had the same style as an actual CompTIA exam. Let's make some questions that have a more direct and specific perspective on the official exam objectives when you like to study things that you would actually expect to see on the exam. And what if it actually helped you when you got the answer wrong? Well, this would be my set of practice exams. We have these available for the 1201, and hopefully the end of today or tomorrow, you'll see these for the 1202 on our website. I just finished the 1202 book. I'm so proud of it and so happy that we're done with those because it's a lot to write. This is a book, just the core one book is 387 pages of questions and answers. There are 3 separate 90-question exams in this book. There are performance-based questions. There are multiple choice questions, and all of them have been updated, revised, or completely replaced to match the specific and official CompTIA exam objectives. You will find no better practice exam that sticks to the objectives than the ones we have created. I can say that with full confidence, seeing what I've already seen out on the market today. So if you want something that's really accurate for the exam, you might want to look at our practice exams book. Let me show you what I mean. Let's do a question from the practice exams book. Same thing applies, of course. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This is from my practice exams book. This is from page 9 of practice exam A, right at the beginning of the exam. This is question A22. And this question asks, a server administrator has received an alert showing OneDrive and a RAID 1 array has failed. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this alert? Would it be to replace the bad drive and resync the array? Would it be to replace all drives in the array and resync the array? Would it be to replace the bad drive and restore from a backup? Would it be to convert the array to RAID 0 and replace the drive? Or would it be to replace all drives in the array and restore from backup? Now, this is one where we have this in a PDF. It's a book form. So we can go through the process of even annotating it. If you have some type of stylus, grab my stylus, you can write on the screen with your stylus, you can make notes, or if you just have a mouse, you can of course grab your mouse because this is a PDF. Maybe I'd like to pick a color. Let's do a blue color. And let's say I'm looking at keywords that are in here, or maybe I think I know the answer. I can go through the process of even picking an answer, and highlighting it on my screen, or at least working through the specifics of annotating and writing things on the book itself. This is not a lockdown book in any form. This is open and available for you to work with and study with and use the way that you would like. Now, the answer to this question, if you just want to know whether it's A, B, C, D, or E, I have a whole page with those letters and numbers on page 31. As I mentioned before, we're on page 9. And if you wanted a detailed answer for this, and I do, it's on page 57. Well, instead of scrolling through this book to page 57, I'm just going to click that says page 57, and it takes me to page 57 instantly. So that's just hyperlinks that are built into every question inside this book. A22 gives us the question again, and it tells us the answer is A, replace the bad drive and resync the array, and I give you a description of why that is the right answer. So if you got it right, you get some immediate feedback telling you, yes, you did get it right, and did you get it right for the right reasons? Explains that. Now, my problem with a lot of these practice exams is that it's a practice exam. You are going to be getting questions wrong. And if you get a question wrong, the natural response to that is going to be, why did I get a question wrong? Why did I get that wrong? And sometimes it's hard to determine that. So in my book, every incorrect answer is documented. You will see that answer B, replace all drives in the array and resync the array. Answer C, replace the bad drive and restore from backup. And answer D, convert the array to RAID 0 and replace the drive. I document why those are not the right answers. So if others of you in the chat, you're going, well, I didn't know if it was A or if it was C. Well, now you can read through this and know exactly why it was A and know exactly why it was not C. So you can really get some interesting feedback. And what I like to say is I'm closing that loop, that feedback loop. When you get a question wrong, how can we make that a positive? How can we turn that into a good thing? And that's how we do it, by giving you additional feedback on why that would be the case. We also have at the very bottom more information. If you read through this question, you thought, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what these RAID things are you're referring to. I don't know what the differences are between resyncing and restoring from backup. If you want to get more information on what these might be, we've got it all written down for you. It's from our Objective 5.2 Troubleshooting Storage Devices video. You can click on the link that we have here in the book to go to that video, or you can use your phone or mobile device to scan the QR code and be able to jump to that video directly. So if you are working through these questions and trying to figure out more details, this can help you not only with the answers, it can help you understand the question, which I think is very different in a set of practice exams. And if we're done with this question, we can use the back button that's in our browser. Did you know, or in our PDF reader, did you know your PDF reader has a back button? It probably does. I'm going to use my back button, and we're back to where we started, and we can go to the next question that's on our list. Those are my practice exams. We have these available currently on our website for the 1201, and in the next number of hours, hopefully in the next 24 hours, you will also see the 1202 practice exams made available. Those will all be available at ProfessorMesser.com. If you want to find the Core 1, you can find it at ProfessorMesser.com/Core1PE. That is something that also helps us. You can also bundle this with your practice exams and course notes together to be able to perhaps get a little bit of a discount on those. We try to give you a break wherever we can, and that's something that also helps us keep the website running and helps us do more of these live streams. So thank you so much for that. I've talked this whole time about getting objectives, how important those objectives are. And you should absolutely get your hands on those objectives. It should probably be the first thing that you read through before you start your studies. Probably should be the last thing you use before you go through the process of taking your exam. These make a fantastic checklist. And so these list of a detailed overview of exactly what will be on the exam is right here. For example, section 1.1 of the 1201 exam objective says, given a scenario, monitor mobile device hardware and use appropriate replacement techniques. You need to know that for battery, keyboard keys, random access memory, RAM, hard disk drive, HDD, solid state drive, SSD, wireless cards, physical privacy and security components, biometrics, near-field scanners, Wi-Fi antenna connector / placement, camera / webcam, and microphone. So if you know everything that you need to know focusing on all of those individual hardware components, how they might be monitored, and how you can replace them in your laptop, then you are in very good shape for that section 1.1 of the exam. That's just one section of one domain on this exam. We, of course, have mobile devices, networking. We've got lots of networking, pages of networking, pages and pages of hardware, a page of virtualization and cloud computing, and pages of network, hardware and network troubleshooting. We also have in this list acronyms. A lot of people like the acronyms. I feel like this is just some extra at the end of the exam objectives, because ideally you're going to learn these acronyms as you organically go through the exam content itself. So as you read your book, as you watch a video, you're probably going to know all the acronyms you need to know, but they are listed in the back of those exam objectives. These are available on the CompTIA website for free. So make sure you grab those, get your hands on the exam objectives. Very, very useful to be able to work through everything you need to know for this exam. And it's one that is a very powerful, useful tool that you can use throughout your entire studies for your certification. Another good thing to think about. We do one of these study groups every month. You can find out more if you go to our website calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar. You can find out when the next events will be. We also have an events calendar on our Discord. It's identical to what we put on our website. Sometimes these dates can change. So even though, for example, I have a Core 2 study group scheduled for Thursday of this week, sometimes chaos happens and I have to reschedule it. Now, if that happens, I update that link immediately. The calendar link on my website and the link that's in Discord are all updated as soon as I make a change. So if you're looking for the latest information, that's where you can go to find out when the next live event is going to be on the Professor Messer website. Something useful to go through. Well, we've come to the end of the first hour, but we're not done yet. We have our after show next. You can submit questions for the after show at any time by visiting that same URL you've been going to this whole time, professormesser.com/QA. There is a link at the top where you can submit your question for the after show. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. If you're in the US or Canada and you'd like to save a little bit of money, that's a great place to go, professormesser.com/vouchers. We also have links to our success bundle, our course notes, our practice exams, and more. You can follow the links at the top of the Professor Messer website or go to professormesser.com/1201success. And of course, if you're on a social media site, so are we. And if you're on one that we're not, tell us where you'd like us to be. You can find us by going to professormesser.com/ the name of the site you would like to find us on. And hopefully we're there. If we're not there, you won't find us there. But if you go to /Discord, /X, /Twitter, /YouTube, /LinkedIn, /Instagram, you get the idea. /Facebook, we're there. You'll be able to find us wherever you happen to be. Well, I think that brings us to the end of what I would like to say is an exceptional study group, but it just gets better in the second hour. Thank you so much for joining along with our questions in this first hour. We have a lot more to go through. Stick around for the after show. Thank you so much for joining us, though, in the main part of the study group. And we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. Okay, it's time for the after show. I'm going to take a sip. Hold on a moment, please. I'm going to sit up straight. Make this happen. There we go. Now we're making it happen. Let's see if I can get rid of my picture there. There we are. Hi, everybody. It's time for the after show. It's time for the part of the show where I stop asking questions, where you start asking questions. Our after show gives you the opportunity to ask me, well, anything you'd like. Ideally, it could be, well, not even ideally. It could be a question about technology, about IT, about getting a job in this crazy environment that we're in right now with hiring. It could be about anything else. If you would ask about the weather, I guess you could ask about the weather as well. There's a lot we can go through. And I would like to remind you that you can submit questions for this after show at any time. You can just submit those. They won't appear on the screen immediately, but there will be information that you can see there. I will sift through them. I can see them on my side, certainly. And we will be able to determine what questions you have. We'll step through all of them, and I'll just start sifting. In fact, I'll start sifting through them right now. A number of questions have already come in about this. I would also remind you that this has come up a couple of times because we are just over 2 weeks away from the 1101 and the 1102 exams from retiring. Now, obviously, there's a time crunch associated with that. And this happens, I've gone through a number of these. We've probably gone through 10 or 12 of these in the last, probably more than that in the last 10 years, more than that, 15 years. So every time we get close to an expiration time frame or retirement time frame for that exam, there is a huge rush to get things done quickly. It's almost like tax day, where everybody's rushing to get their taxes submitted. It's the same thing. Everybody's rushing to get that exam done. Here's something you should keep in mind if you're one of those people that are rushing to get that done. There is a huge push to get those finished on that final day, on that 25th of September. But keep in mind that 25th date has certain availability associated with it. You can only take an exam if there is a seat available in a local exam center or if there is a virtual seat available online. These are finite resources. There are not unlimited numbers of seats. And what we have found is that people will be pushing and pushing and pushing to get that second exam done before the expiration date. And then they realize there's no seats available. That although they have studied, they are ready to take the exam. And would a place be available, they could potentially pass that exam before the retirement date. There's simply no seats available, and they end up missing their opportunity. So if you're one of those folks that plans on getting there on the last day and getting this done, that's tough. I don't recommend it, but I understand. But if that's the case, you might want to think about scheduling it now before an enormous rush shows up. Get yourself locked into a date and time that you can work towards, and you won't be left holding the bag. Because if you don't pass that second exam, you will have to start completely over with the 1200 series. You can't pass the 1101 and then take the 1202. You can't pass the 1102 and take the 1201. Both of the exams you take must be from the same exam series. So that's why I tell you, do that. In fact, if you are really thinking ahead, for those of you that have parsed this out, let me bring up something on my screen so you can see that. I'm going to bring up the CompTIA retake policy. Not because I think you're going to fail, but I think you should be planning for anything. It's always good to have an insurance policy, isn't it? The retake policy for an exam says that, let's go to the very top of this. So in the event you fail your first attempt to pass any CompTIA certification exam, CompTIA does not require any waiting period between the first and second attempt. All right, that's good to know. So if you fail it on one day, you could take it again the next day if there's an availability. That's, of course, your challenge is availability right now. But if you took it on the 23rd, you could take it again on the 24th. Could you take it even again on the 25th? That's where you got a problem. Because before your third attempt or any subsequent attempt after that third, you shall be required to wait for a period of at least 14 calendar days from the date of your last attempt. So if you take an exam on the 23rd and then you take a retake on the 24th and you fall short, you can't take it on the 25th. You got to wait 2 weeks. So you might actually be thinking now would be a good time to take the exam so you can fit it in before that 2-week period. So there's a lot of strategy here that you should work through. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not going to fail it, so we're not going to worry about it. Or you might say, I'll give myself one retake, because you can buy retake vouchers now on my website where you can take the exam and then you can take it again and not have to purchase a completely separate voucher for that. So there are some advantages to having that retake. Maybe that single take and a retake, that's your first and second attempt. You don't need a waiting period. Maybe that's fine for you. But if you think you're going to need that third attempt, you may run out of time. So just another one of those things that you need to think about as you go through the process of planning to take your exam. Now, if you haven't taken the 1201, or if you haven't taken the 1101 and you have not taken the 1102, you haven't taken either of those, you might want to consider moving over to the 1200 series. Having 2 weeks left to be able to take these two exams is a remarkably aggressive schedule, especially when you consider that on average, it takes folks about 2 to 3 months to study for one of these exams. 2 weeks is not 2 to 3 months. So I think moving over to the newer exam series takes away that time crunch. You've completely removed that pressure from your life. This might make it a little bit easier for you. So I would highly encourage you, if you are someone who is working on getting your A+ certification, look very closely at which exams you're planning to take. It might be very, very important for you. And it might be the difference between saving some money, paying more money, or being able to pass the exams on the first try. There's all kinds of challenges when we get near the end of one of these exam series. So just keep that in mind as you are working through scheduling, planning, determining when you're taking these. That's an important thing to keep in mind. This is, and as I've said from 6 months ago, when those new exams came out, I said, this is what you need to keep in mind. You need to keep your eye on that retirement date. That retirement date can be a big difference between being successful and not successful with these exam series. Just another one of those things to think about. So let's go through in the list of things that people find in the exam objectives, questions you have about the exam itself, and those types of things. Our first question today comes from Jeremy, who asks, why is GFS in the acronyms for the Core 1 when it's listed as part of the exam objectives for the Core 2? This is something that is a common question that we get in our email inbox, quite honestly. And let's have a look at this. So let's parse this out, shall we? Let's go back to the exam objectives. Here they are. This is the 220-1201. So we are looking at the Core 1 exam objectives. And let's go click back to the end. And you will see in those is GFS. GFS, of course, stands for grandfather, father, son. This is a strategy for performing backups. And as was appropriately mentioned on this in the question that was posed, is the problem with this is that GFS is not part of the exam objectives for the 1201. In fact, very little is listed in the 1201 regarding backups. This is really a topic for the 1202. And the question is, why is it in the acronym list for the 1201? Well, probably shouldn't be. This is one of the reasons I tell folks, don't spend a lot of time reading through the acronym list. In many cases, it's not going to help you very much. And I think this is a really good example of this. For example, let's say that you've spent your time memorizing all of these 3-letter, 4-letter acronyms, and you now know that GFS stands for grandfather, father, son. Well, by itself, that means nothing. How would you even know what that's referring to? Grandfather, father, son, is this a genealogy site that we're on? Are we trying to figure out our family tree? Why are we talking about my grandfather? Why are we talking about a father? Where's their son? We're not talking about people. These are computers, right? So just knowing that GFS means grandfather, father, son doesn't help you. And that is the one takeaway I want you to get from this acronym list. Spending your time simply memorizing an acronym and the words associated with that acronym is a relatively pointless process. You have to add one additional piece of information. You have to add into this list being able to understand what that means. How would you use it? How is this technology important? Where would you see this technology used? there's additional details you need to put into this list. Now, if you have this flashcard acronym thing that you're working on and you include that additional information, I think that's pretty acceptable. Except you get into scenarios, and this is not the only scenario in this list of 1201 acronyms here, where they have mixed an acronym from Core 2 into the Core 1. There's also some vice versa in this as well. So, and some of these you just don't even need to know. Let's go back to this acronym list. Most of these apply. Most of these are pretty good, but you will run into one every once in a while. In fact, I'm not even sure PCI is even still on the exam, but they still have the acronym in the list. It's just another example of some of the things you will find with this. There's some security things in here that are in the Core 2 that are not in the Core 1. There's a lot mixed up with these acronyms that don't make them completely accurate to the exam. And that's why I tell most people, just don't even worry about the acronym list. Everything you need to know about acronyms is in the core part of the exam objectives. For example, we've already seen this in section 1.1. It said hard disk drive, solid state drive. Notice it put HDD, and for solid state drive, it put SSD. For random access memory, it put RAM. So places where it's an important acronym, they point that out in the exam objectives themselves. That's why I tell you that you will learn these acronyms organically as you go through this process. As you train, as you watch the videos, as you read your book, you will get these acronyms naturally as you go through the objectives. You don't have to worry about memorizing what the letters are or what those terms mean. You will not get a question on your exam that asks you, what do the letters GFS stand for? They're just not going to ask that. That is a pointless piece of information to know anyway. So of course they're not going to ask this. What they might ask is, your organization is implementing GFS. In which of the following would this be an important technology? And they might have drive redundancy, backup technologies, memory access, configuration files, and Linux. They might have 5 different things there. Well, obviously, this is a backup strategy, so we would choose the option for backup strategy. But you have to know that to be able to answer the question. So that's how all of those things work together. So that is a great idea to think about from an acronym perspective, but also it's important to know why those acronyms exist. And I think you're going to get most of those anyway as we step through this. Let's find another question. You can submit questions at any time. I should probably put that up on my lower third. You can submit questions at any time by visiting this URL, professormesser.com/QA, and submit your answers into our big list of answers. Let's keep going through this list. Well, this is a pretty good one. I think we can talk about this one. I mentioned that you can submit questions that have to do with IT in general. And this is one from Marjorie, who asks, what is the typical schedule for a cybersecurity/IT professional? Can I work morning shifts, please? Marjorie is a morning person. I think Marjorie might work out well if you run into this, because a lot of us don't like morning type thing. I'm a bit of a morning person myself. I am up before the sun comes up for some reason. I don't want to be. It's not by choice, but that's just how it worked out for me. It's what my brain does. So it wakes me up worried about the day. The anxiety is hit at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I am up and I'm in the studio, and we are answering emails, and we are getting everybody's overnight vouchers done. And there's lots of things that happen in the morning. Now, the typical schedule for cybersecurity, and I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who worked many, many, many years in a cybersecurity role, specifically one around large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 organizations and state and local government. So most of the organizations I worked with were names you would recognize. So if you go to a retail establishment, you go to a mall, you go drive by different places, and you see these big companies, those are the ones I went into. If you're driving down the interstate and you see these big buildings with lots of people inside, those were the people that I would visit. So I would often talk with security professionals in these very large organizations, large corporations, internet service providers, wide area network providers, financial companies, transportation, healthcare, state and local government, across the board. Many different, we call them vertical markets, many different vertical markets that we would go talk to. The vast majority of these cybersecurity professionals, these IT security folks, they're working a normal business workday. So they come in the morning at 9, they leave about 5. That's pretty much the normal, I would say, for the vast majority of security professionals. But for a number of these companies, especially the large global companies, the multi-billion-dollar global companies, it's not a 9 to 5 company. They're still working after hours. In fact, around the world, other people are just getting into the office when you're leaving. And so in those scenarios, there might be a 24-hour cycle of folks. There are companies that I've worked with in very large municipalities, very large companies that have a 24-hour security operations center, a SOC. The security operations center is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are 3 shifts of people that come through there. And so you may have a job in a SOC where you might have the morning shift or the day shift. You might have the night shift, or you might have the overnight. So it just depends on how this company has this scenario. But I would say the vast majority of companies I worked with had people in the office from 9 to 5. And then after 5 o'clock, there was a group of people that were on call. And usually there'd be one person in the group that would be on call for a week, and then they'd hand the phone off or that number to someone else. And then that would be the person that would get called for the next week. And then it'd be somebody else the week after that. So there was always somebody available if something really went wrong during the nighttime hours. But since for most of those scenarios, these are companies based in the US, usually when they leave at 5, most of their work is done. Now, obviously, change control is a different thing. You sometimes have to come in on the weekend. You have to come in the early mornings. There's different things that you will be required to do. But I would say the vast majority of folks I worked with is a normal 9 to 5 scenario. Most of those were in an office. There are a number of people that have positions that are remote, but usually you have to work up to those. Usually you're in a position where you have to be someone who is working and has worked in the field quite a long time, and you have a specialization, which means that you can apply that knowledge across many different places in the world, many different geographies. So you might be someone that handles a problem in the morning in New York City. In the afternoon, you're working on an issue that's in Minneapolis. And as you finish up your day, you're troubleshooting an issue with security in Los Angeles. And then you're done for the day. There's your 5 o'clock. But because this is all happening in different places around the world, you can't be in one place. You can't be expected to fly to New York in the morning and then fly to Minneapolis in the afternoon and then fly to Los Angeles in the evening. Laws of physics are a problem, and logistics don't allow that to really work very well. So you now are in a very good position where you can simply work at home. And you can be on your call to folks that are in New York. You can remotely connect to those over the VPN. You can do anything you need to do with your switches, your routers, your firewalls, your intrusion prevention, your VPNs, whatever it happens to be, your certificates. And then you can solve that problem. You disconnect from that call. You connect to the next one that's in Minneapolis. You work on that one for hours. You finish that one up. You finish that, and then you go to the next one. I worked with many different companies where that would be the case. Most often, those remote types of positions are with large international companies, and very often with service providers, technology communication service providers, the AT&Ts of the world, the Verizons of the world, the T-Mobiles of the world. I've been in their headquarters. I've talked to their security people. We've talked about the way that they handle security in those environments. And it's something that is fascinating, but it does require you to have expertise. And that expertise is something you can't get everywhere. So that person generally is a person who's working remotely. They don't have a special title. They don't have a special name associated with them. They're a systems engineer. They are a security engineer. They are a security administrator, whatever the name is that they use. Every company has a different set of names that they use associated with these positions. It's really more about what you know and what your specialty is. And this takes years of time to work into those roles. But if you're someone who would like to have a job that was more remote, that is a very good one to use. A lot of the jobs I worked were jobs where I went to the customers personally. So a lot of the jobs that I had in cybersecurity were physically going to a facility where everybody was located, talking with them for hours, working with them on configuring a firewall, setting up a migration, modifying configuration settings, doing some technical support. And then I would hop in the car and go to the next customer in that particular geography. So a lot of what I did was going from place to place. So I got to see a lot of great stuff, a lot of really cool stuff. Because when you visit someone at their facility, you get to, first, you meet a lot of interesting people, very knowledgeable people, which I find to be fascinating. And then you get to see their data centers and their configurations. And you would think, well, data center's a data center, a data center. And for the most part, I guess you would be correct. It's a secure room. It's got air conditioning and you got a bunch of racks full of equipment. But everybody has a different set of philosophies and a different set of technologies that they're using and a different purpose for these technologies. If it's a hospital, there is a different requirement for uptime and availability at a hospital than if you are at a life insurance company. If a server breaks at a life insurance company, nobody died. But at a hospital, this could be a very serious problem. So you can imagine there's a huge difference in the importance of keeping these networks up and running, depending on what your job happens to be. So it was always interesting to see the dynamics and the differences and talk with people about what's important to them and the problems that need to be solved. And it was different everywhere you went. And that's one of the things I loved about that job is although I was not at home, I was also not working in a business. I was not working at the same desk every day. Every day was different. And those types of jobs, there's jobs out there for anybody who works in IT. You can find a job at different places that have different advantages and disadvantages. I was working with someone who worked for a state government. Was it state government? I think it was more of a hospital. They were working in a hospital. It was a very big hospital, the big IT department. And they were sharp. I mean, they knew their stuff. In fact, to the point that I thought, why are you working here? Your knowledge would allow you to work and do things elsewhere. You could be at the top of your game and travel around the world and do what you do because people would love to have that skill set that you have. And they said, well, in my particular case, I have things at home that require me to be there a lot. And because I work for this hospital, they give me huge amounts of flexibility. And I can be at home during the morning and then come in the afternoon if I have to. Or when I hit 5 o'clock, I get to leave and I get to go home. And I can do whatever I need remotely from there. And they give me the flexibility to do that. That's something I can't do, he said, if I have your job, where you have to travel, you have to get on a plane on Monday, you have to fly to a different place, you have to be in a city for a day. I can't do that. I thought, well, there's a really good example of how you can pick the job you need that has the capabilities that fit your life. And this is one of the great advantages, I think, of IT, is if you have the knowledge, you have the ability to ask for that type of leverage because you have a skill set that nobody else has. So finding that great combination between what you want to do, how you want to do it, and an organization that will allow you to do that is something that it's not unique to IT, but I think it is common to find in the world of information technology. And all you need is a little knowledge. You need experience. You need some stick time. You need to be able to work on these technologies for a number of years. And once you move up, it's remarkable how much leverage you end up having, how much more flexibility you have with your job and everything else. So great question about, can you work the morning shift? Probably can. Probably can. Not a problem. You just need to find the right combination of those things. You need the right knowledge in your brain, the ability to use those skills, and the right employer that will be able to give you that flexibility you need. And when you start moving up in the organization, a lot of what we talk about here is A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. Those are relatively entry-level certifications. So you don't have that leverage yet, but it doesn't take long in this industry to build that knowledge. If you are assertive, You are someone who is driven to learn this content. You spend your time understanding what's happening on the wire, what's happening with these operating systems, how they work on the inside, how they work under the hood, and you can use that knowledge to become more of a technologist. You will very quickly learn that you have a lot more leverage available, and you can do things like that. It's one of the great things about IT. It's one of the reasons I do this. It's because I've done that in my career. I've already been through that learning process. I've already seen and experienced that leverage in my career, and I've seen it in the career of others. So I've worked with people that have no college degree and make multiple six figures a year because they have worked, they have sweated, they have driven themselves to learn the content. And having those skills is unique and something that organizations are willing to pay for. Let's keep going through the questions that you are submitting to me. You can submit questions at any time by going to professormaster.com/QA, and I will just talk through the questions that you have. We'll see what we have and what answers are there and the things that we can do. Let's keep going through this list. Oh, here's one I don't know the answer to. We'll figure it out. It's from Chichi, who says, how many certifications do you have? Well, that's a fine question. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to how many certifications I have. A lot of the certifications that I have, the most recent ones, really focus on security. So I have tons of Palo Alto Network certifications under my belt because I worked at Palo Alto Networks for 7 years. So we got our Palo Alto Network certifications because you had to have a Palo Alto Network certification if you were a systems engineer representing their products. At a minimum, you would need the certification. Fortunately, they trained us extremely well at Palo Alto Networks, and we didn't have to study very much to earn our certification there because we were already expected to know a lot more than what was on those certification exams. But it's another example of how, depending on where you work, you may need a different set of certifications. But I go back, some of my very first certifications, not to dwell on timeframes, was a series of certifications from a company called the Certified Network Expert, or CNX. When I started my career, there was no A+, so we didn't have kind of a rolled up entry-level set of certs. I started getting certifications when I get into the world of network administration. And there was a series of extremely difficult exams to go through for Ethernet and token ring and FDDI and ATM and cabling. And you can already tell how outdated these certifications are now because some of these technologies no longer are used in any real form. You don't see token ring anymore. You certainly don't see FDDI. You don't see ATM. These are network technologies that we just fell by the wayside because Ethernet killed them. But Ethernet, I got my Ethernet CNX. Then I got my MCSE, my Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. I've got Novell certifications. I've got Cisco certifications. I've got certifications from, what other ones are there? There's some others mixed into there. But I would say overall, there's probably about 20 or so different certifications that I've accumulated through the years. But as you have seen already with the A+, the A+ is good for 3 years after you earn your cert, and then they expect you during that 3-year time frame to renew it in some way. You can renew by collecting CEUs, you can renew by taking their CertMaster CE, you can renew by taking the exam again, you can renew by taking a higher level exam. There's lots of ways to renew your cert. But they want you to be able to renew and keep the latest information in your brain. They want you to know what the latest technologies are and be able to keep up with those. So obviously the certifications I got years ago, it's interesting to talk about, and to some degree, they are not worth very much, but here's where it's surprising, I think. So I mentioned that I got an MCSE. This is a certification that Microsoft has not offered for a very, very, very long time. The Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. And you had to take 6 different certification exams surrounding the use of primarily Microsoft Windows and Windows Server. So it was everything you need as a foundation to be able to support Microsoft technologies in the enterprise. Active Directory, the networking side of things, the desktop administration, being able to maintain those systems, to automate the maintenance of those systems, to push out your patches, to have automated installation processes, everything you need to be able to manage Windows. Well, those were based on, when I took those exams, those were based on Windows NT. That was when those were out. We think, well, what good is that now? Because that was Windows NT. It's not good anymore. That certification's long gone. What a waste of time. Except a lot of the fundamental skills that I learned going through the MCSE are still in Microsoft Windows. So understanding Active Directory. It's the same Active Directory that we have today. There's obviously a number of newer features associated with it, but the foundational knowledge you need to be able to understand how Active Directory is structured, how it works, how you integrate with it, how you can access it, how LDAP integrates with it, how people are able to log in and use it, the type of group policy that you can configure. All of those things are identical today as they were 20 years ago. So as you are going through these courses and you're learning about a very specific version of Windows, Windows 11 on the latest A+ exam, those skills you learn with Windows 11, you will be able to apply in some degree towards Windows 12, towards Windows, well, they have a Windows 13. You think they'll do that? Maybe Windows 14? Whatever they end up calling it. Or are they calling it, I think they're calling it the name of the year now, aren't they? Aren't they going to move to that? So whatever they come up with, when they come up with the Windows 2025, Windows 2026, Windows 2027, it's probably not a bad idea. Whatever the scheme they come up with, in the future, you'll be able to look back 10 years from now and think, I'm glad I learned that because I'm still using those skills. Same thing especially applies for networking. The Ethernet frame types that I learned at the very beginnings of my technology career are the same Ethernet frame types that we're using today. The same process for capturing frames and viewing them and looking at a protocol decode, identical to what we are doing today. So we often go into these certifications and thinking about this as, how can I get the cert so I can get a job? We often forget, how can I get the cert so that I now have a foundation of technology that I can build on as I go through my career? There is value to these certifications that you will continue to use and to benefit from as you go through your entire IT career, which is interesting and remarkable and makes you understand a little bit better how important these certifications might be. So from my perspective, don't really have many recent certifications. I don't have to take certifications anymore because this is what I do. If somebody showed up and said, well, you can't put things on YouTube unless you have a certification, I'm going to go get that cert so I can post those videos on YouTube. So we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. Let's keep going through this list of things that you have. We've got lots of questions that are coming in. Thank you for submitting those. I know we've got about 10 minutes before we get to our hard stop at the top of the hour. So let me pick a couple of good ones as you are coming through this list. Here's one that's pretty good. This is one I'm going to also sort of modify your question in a bit. This is from Ian, who says, good afternoon, Professor. I graduated with my bachelor's in IT in December 2023. And by the way, I'm very curious about those of you that have gone through a 4-year degree that specifically was an IT degree. I would love to hear more about where you did this because I try to keep up with different colleges and universities. It's hard to find a degree, a bachelor's degree in IT that really is focused on IT. I'm starting to see a slow move in the industry, in the world of higher education. I'm going to use that term loosely. But that is one where they're getting a little bit better with really focusing on IT in those 4-year degrees rather than simply calling it computer science, which is not IT, by the way. Not even close, not even related, as it turns out. Very little. So, and Ian says, I went to FIU. So Florida International, a great university. Also, I have some great stories about networking at Florida International and how their oceanography building, I'll bet even today, still has coax 10 base 5. I think they still have in their oceanography building. I bet they still do, because it was they put it in the bricks of that one. They still have this enormous, that's a thick net, they call it. They have a thick coax in that building. Anyway, I will go look at theirs and see what they have there. I'm very interested in that. Anyway, the question is, I currently work as a repair technician / triage agent at Geek Squad, but with appliances and TVs. How can I translate this job to relevant IT or transition to an entry-level help desk job? All right, first off, you're working at Geek Squad, although you are not specifically dealing with the computers, operating systems, tablets, phones type things at Geek Squad. You are getting the most important part of the Geek Squad experience, which is you're working with the general public. You are learning computer skills to some degree, because obviously you have to learn how to connect to wireless networks and network these televisions that we have these days. They've turned into their own computers. But the other thing that I find with this is the customer service side. That customer service piece is so important in IT. What? I thought we work with computers. I thought we work with servers and tablets. This computer has nothing in it from a customer service perspective. It's all ones and zeros. Why would customer service be important? Well, because somebody's holding this tablet. Somebody's trying to use this tablet to accomplish something. They're trying, in the world of Best Buy, they want to have a computer or a television where they can talk to their family. They can have a video conference with family members, or they want to be able to send emails to people that they know. They want to be able to text message. It's very, very, not relatively simple, because it's the same things we're doing in our corporate world, but it's very consumer oriented. That is the most challenging customer service you're going to have. So I would highly encourage you, although we often complain about needing to deal with customer service, I would recommend you turn that around a little bit and soak in as much of this as you can. The better you get with working with other people, finding out what their problems are, working them through the stressful and sometimes angry feelings that they have about making the system work, and you're able to turn all of that around and bring them to a place where their problem has been solved and they're now much happier, that's a great place to be. And it's a process you're going to not just want to go through, you're going to need to go through that process with every single interaction you have in the world of IT. And I will tell you, from the people that I have met and the places that I have worked, the better you are in working with people, the better technologist you tend to be. Doesn't seem like that would be true. It's absolutely true. It is a skill set that is super important, sort of in the world, but especially in the world of technology, because you have to be the person who not only solves puzzles, and that's what we do as IT professionals. We are puzzle solvers. If you're someone who loves the find a word, you love an anagram, you like the nonograms, you like the Sudokus, you're one of those fix the puzzle kind of thing. You want to figure out the answer to that puzzle. That's what we do every day. Somebody shows up with a puzzle, and then we have to figure out this highly complex series of tasks to be able to solve the puzzle. That's what we do. And I think a lot of people in IT are really driven by the problem solving aspect of it. But if you really want to excel, and you really want to do well, and you really want to propel yourself through the world of IT and make more money and have more responsibility and do other things with other companies, you really want to work on the people side. It will return to you a benefit in spades. There will be a multiplier benefit of being able to work well with people. The part that I've really discovered about that in this particular role, especially in the internet, it may be hard for you to believe this. Sometimes people on the internet can be a little bit mean. So you really have to create kind of a thick skin to put your face on the internet. And so what I've really discovered a number of things about me is I'm pretty good about ignoring that. You really get to a place where initially it hurts when people start doing that, but then you figure out, okay, how can I compartmentalize this? How can I create a bark skin for myself where they say something, but they're not really saying that because they don't like me personally. They don't even know me personally, but they're frustrated with something else, or they're having to deal with learning all of these things, or they hate memorizing port numbers, and they take that stress and that frustration and they put that on someone else or something else. And so I get that. You want to say bad things in an email to me, you can do it all day long. Doesn't bother me at all. I read through it. I try to figure out, is there something else here that I'm missing, or are they just being spiteful? Sometimes there is that. And then once I figure out what to reply back and say, here's how I think I can help you, or in the cases where they're just being mean, just ignore it completely. You don't engage. That's really the secret on the internet, by the way, is you just leave them hanging. You leave them on read, and they hate that. Hate it. So more than anything, if you want to make somebody angry on the internet, you just ignore them. And it's remarkable how powerful that is. Never engage. But if you are able to connect with them at a human level, they're really looking for help and they don't know how to ask for it in the right way. Well, let's see if we can redirect that a little bit. Those skill sets are extremely valuable financially and for a career perspective. They are very, very, very valuable skills. So at a very minimum, Ian, being able to work at Best Buy and being able to you're not going to be there forever. Nobody's at Best Buy forever. Very few people. The CEO definitely not at Best Buy forever. So you're going to want to soak in as much of this as you can. You want to keep your eyes open. You want to see how people are handling things. You want to think about how you could be doing that even better. And eventually, you'll also want to think about the technology side of things. The things you are learning about connecting televisions and appliances these days. Every appliance in my house is now connected to the internet in some way, for better or for worse. Well, if you can have an app that gives you a status on your washer and dryer, on your oven, on your microwave, on your coffee maker. This is what's in our homes today, on our refrigerator. Do we need connectivity for a refrigerator? No, we do not. Do we have technology and connectivity in our refrigerator? Yes, we do, which means we have to know how to support that. Just because you don't agree with it, and maybe I don't agree with it, doesn't mean somebody else doesn't want this. So if you can be the one to figure out that technology, understand, why am I putting an IP address on this? Why am I setting it for DHCP? What does the default gateway mean? What does that subnet mask have to do with any of this? Why can't I get connectivity to the internet? All of that, those basic network troubleshooting skills, you will use for your entire IT career. Trust me, regardless of what you do. If you work with databases, you need to know that. If you're in the cloud, you need to know that. If you work in a data center, you need to know that. Do you work on operating systems? You need to know that. Are you a network person? You absolutely need to know that. So all of these things that you will be working with and the things that you do, even in the world of Best Buy, will help you a great deal. My first customer service related job was at a company that rented videotapes. They used to exist. It used to be a real thing. So the way that we would watch movies back in the day is we would go to a place that had tapes and tapes of movies, all the latest blockbusters. We could grab the Die Hard. We could get the Terminator. We could go get the Star Trek. We could get the tape. We would take it home and we could put it into a machine that would then show us that video, that movie. It's archaic. I get it, but that's what we had. There was no internet. And I worked at the place that rented those movies. First, I got movies for free, which was awesome, but on Saturday nights, not so good because everybody would just sell out the place on Saturday. I worked lived in a very small town, in a very small county, and this was big entertainment for us. It seemed like everybody in town would show up at the video rental place on a Saturday because we were closed on Sunday, because you get that extra day of rental out of it. They'd walk out with a stack of 10 tapes, and they take it home. They bring it back on Monday. I will tell you, you need to be kind and rewind. That's just something I want to have you take back with you. Pretty important. It was a movie gallery, for those of you wondering in the chat room. It was not Blockbuster. It was the movie gallery, and national organization, but it was one where you worked with people. You got to talk to people. I lived in a small town. It was all in the South. Small towns in the South. How you doing? How's Becky? How's she feeling? How's her hip doing? She doing good? I'll stop by later. I got some honey I can give her. Just came out. We got a bunch that we put in. We'll bring it over to her. She'll love it. So that's what we did. And that was my first chance to figure out what I knew and didn't know about customer service. There wasn't a lot of technology there. So I feel like I'm almost in that same type of role you're in, Ian, where I had to figure out, okay, I can connect things up. There's coax and there's power and there's some basic troubleshooting, but it's not computers. But computers really were interesting to me. So I sort of used that and propelled that. By the way, that was before we used computers in the rental store. We did everything on paper because computers were too expensive for, I know, I'm super old. It's the way it works. When you're back in those days, you sort of think about how important databases are, how valuable having that data in one place is. So those are the types of things that are jobs that at the time, you might not think this is very valuable in the world of IT. So it turns out some of the things you learn can be extremely important and working through those. So translating that job to a relevant IT or transitioning to entry-level help desk, that should be a relatively simple move, almost a lateral move from what you're doing, because we can teach you the technology. We can have you understand how an operating system works. We can train you on what to do when you get a blue screen of death. We can help you understand how to get data on a USB drive and take it to another person. We can train you on all of that. The part that's hard to train on is the people part. That I think is the hardest part to learn. And you are learning that in spades. So for those of you that have been through that, I think my very first job had nothing to do with technology at all. It was working out in the fields. I came from a very small town. It was very agricultural. So a lot of what I did in the summers was working with a hoe in my hands. I got gloves on and we're just out there in the field all day. It was just menial labor. And that was one where you start to recognize technology could be pretty useful. First, it's air conditioned. Gotta love that. And I think working with technology is a great way to move up quickly in better than almost any industry you're going to run into. So another thing that you can work through all that. So I know we're at the top of the hour. Let me see if I can squeeze in one more question because I have the ability to today and my voice is kind of hanging out. We're doing okay and working through that. Let's go through the other piece of that. So let's talk about exams and studying for exams. This is something that's come up a couple of times. This is one that asks, Professor, what's your ideal study duration when you were studying for your exams? Any unhinged tips? Nothing unhinged. I think it's a fundamental. We've taken what we think is the right mix and type of study to give you the best possible outcome. And it really consists of 4 different things. We think it is useful to be able to have these 4 different elements as part of your studies. You don't have to have all 4 of these, but it helps to have all 4. The first is we think it's useful to be able to have a good book and be able to read some of the information associated with these technologies. It's also a relatively inexpensive investment. Books are relatively inexpensive. I say relatively. We're talking about a certification exam that will cost you many hundreds of dollars. So getting a book for $30 or $40 is pretty good investment, especially considering all of the information that's contained within that book. So reading a book's a great thing to do. Watching some videos. Really, I start with the watch video part. We refer to this four step or four elements as WRAP, W-R-A-P. The watching of the videos is the W. Watching videos gives you a demonstration on the screen. You can see someone doing it. You get a little bit of lecture. You get a little bit hands-on without having to touch anything. You can see someone else performing the ping. You can see someone else doing the installation of Windows. You can see someone else troubleshooting that particular problem. So there's that watching part of it. The reading part, we'd already mentioned with the books. That's the WR and the WRAP. The A is applying what you have learned with the videos and the books to get some hands-on. So if you're working on some labs, that is applying that knowledge for you to do some hands-on. And we have labs on our website that might be a good choice for that. And then lastly is the P, the WRAP, the practice that you're going to do. And practice questions should come last. There are people that we've talked to on our Discord that think you should start with practice questions. Forget the books, forget the videos. Let's just go to the practice questions. But in reality, it's not your best way to go through about doing this. You need to have some perspective of how you're answering these questions. The questions aren't there to teach you. The practice questions are there to see if you've learned what other things have taught you. I think that's the best use of practice questions. Now, if you don't get questions right, there's the opportunity to learn. But why would you get every question wrong? That doesn't give you any feedback on how you're doing so far. So I think that's the important part of being able to understand all of those scenarios and working through them. I think it's an important part of studying for anything is being able to use all four of those different learning opportunities. Watching the video, reading the book, applying it with labs, and finally practice with practice questions, the WRAP. Those are the four things that I think would be it's not really unhinged. It's very block and tackle. It's very foundational to understanding what you need to know and how you need to go through the learning process. And we try to emphasize those on our website constantly. We're going to be doing a lot more of that WRAP method so that you can be sure that you have all the tools you need to be successful with these certifications. And if you're somebody working through certifications and trying to figure out what should I do in this world of IT, how am I going to get through? If you've looked at the exam objectives, they're enormous. And you may be thinking to yourself, how am I ever going to get through all of these different bullets? How am I ever going to learn all of this content? By the time I learn this one, I've forgotten it when I get to the next section. Well, you think you've forgotten it, but you really haven't. It's really in there. You just need to know how to use these multiple methods to learn it in different ways. And I think that's where we start to miss the opportunities. We think watching the videos is it, and you're done. But I've never said that you should be learning that way. It's only one dimension. You need to add on a different set of synapses firing for similar content. So if you watch somebody installing Windows and then you read about the Windows installation process, you're learning twice in different ways and very often with different types of content. So don't think you can dismiss one of those and never have to read a book. Now, obviously, if reading is difficult for you and you find it easier to watch a video, watch more video. Watch multiple video series. So there are ways where you could get rid of one of those, but add on additional of the others. So another example of how you might want to use different methods. It's sort of like the idea of having those different touch points whenever you're thinking about going to a movie. You see the movie advertised. You saw a trailer come up on YouTube. You saw a show where somebody in the movie was interviewed, and then somebody else saw the movie and told you about it. So you got three different places where people are telling you about this. After a while, you think, okay, I think I understand now about this movie and what they want me to do. Same thing applies with these exams. Watch the video, then read a book about it, then maybe do some labs. You're doing the same thing 3 times, but in different ways and with different types of content. It starts to stick. You really start to understand it, and it starts to get embedded into your brain. And for something like a certification exam, that is a great place to be. And now you can take the practice exam and see if you really, really understand it. Another way to go about doing that. That's our RAP method. That's how we think you should be studying for the exam. That's the way that we think is going to serve you the best. You find the right combination for you. You find the right set of tools for you. You put those together. You've got a formula for success. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group, 2 hours plus of information. Hopefully that's given you something to think about for your studies, and maybe you've learned something as we've gone through all of this today. Of course, we do one of these study groups for Core 1. We do another one for Core 2. So if you like this study group, come on back Thursday. We've got our Core 2 study group, and then we will absolutely have another number set of brand new questions to go through, and a number of questions we will go through in the after show. We would love for you to join us on Thursday for that. And of course, next week is our Network Plus study group. The week after that is our Security Plus study group. There's always something to think about, something to learn, and always something fun to do. So that's another place where you can meet us. Come on back Thursday. We'd love to see you there. In the meantime, we will be over on our Discord at professormesser.com/Discord, helping with folks that are studying for their A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.